morning, everybody.
This meeting is being held in compliance with the Brown Act. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. If a member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. For all members participating remotely, please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. Please state your name during deliberations and whether making a motion or offering a second. Any voting member or member of the public calling into this meeting by telephone can press *6 to mute and unmute. All telephone participants should identify themselves prior to speaking. SCAG encourages all members of the public to participate in its meetings. We are committed to holding meetings accessible to people with disabilities. For members of the public requiring ADA accommodation, please call 213-630-1410. SCAG offers free interpretation services for members of the public needing information in another language. Please call 213-236-1895. The meeting will now begin.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today in person and online. I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. So today is Thursday, September 4th, 2025, and the meeting of the Energy Environment Committee is now called to order. So just as a reminder, if a member of the body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. So with that, I'd like to ask Jenny Crosswhite if she would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone in attendance and at home too. So at this time, we'll go ahead and confirm a quorum with the clerk.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Oh, welcome. So, and now we're going to go ahead and give an opportunity for the public to speak in their comment period. So we'll open the general public comment period of the meeting. This is the time for members of the public to offer comment on matters that are within SCAG's jurisdiction, but are not listed on the agenda. Staff, have we received any written public comments after the deadline of 5 p.m. on Wednesday, September 3rd?
No, we have not, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much. So at this time, this is an opportunity. Do we have anyone in attendance in person wishing to speak public comments? And do we have anyone online today?
No one online.
Okay, we do not. So we'll go ahead and move on, and we'll close the public comment period. And now what we're going to do, so we have a pretty full agenda today with some presentations. So in order to save time, if anybody wants to pull anything from the consent calendar, I ask that we have staff present before moving to the roll call vote on the consent calendar. So we have 2 items on consent. We have items 1 and 2. The first item is the minutes of June 5th, 2025. And the second item, number 2, is the status on the transportation conformity challenges in the SCAG region. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to discuss the consent calendar items? Seeing none, I'll move to online.
No raised hands.
Okay, we do not. So we'll move on. So I'll look for a motion to move the 2 items 1 and 2 on the consent. We have a move by Kalmick.
Second.
And a second by Ramos. All in, a roll call, please. For that. Online.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll proceed with roll call. Annabelle Trans, Daniel Brotman, Martha Cardina Singh, Margaret Clark,
Yes.
Jenny Crosswhite,
Yes.
Ned Davis.
Present.
Thank you. This is for roll call. I just want to make sure, are you voting yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Rick Dennison,
Dennison, yes.
thank you. Carmen Hernandez,
Yes.
Sherry Horn,
Horn, I.
Britt Huff, Brian Joes, Joe Kelmick,
Yes.
Stephen Leish, Elaine Litzer, Yasmin Imani McMorrin.
Yes.
Daniel Ramos,
Ramos, yes.
Jennifer Stark, Tamala Takahashi, Connor Trout,
Yes.
thank you. Stephanie Bergen,
Yes.
Dale Welty,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Chair, the motion for consent calendar passes with, 13 votes yes, 0 no's, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you very much for the vote count. So we're going to move on to our first action item for today. This is Connect SoCal 2050 Sub-Regional Sustainable Community Strategy Framework and Guidelines. Because of our schedule, we have about 10 minutes for the presentation, and Camille Gariba will be presenting today. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Camille Griba, Senior Regional Planner with Planning Strategy. Today, I'm here to present the Sub-Regional Sustainable Community Strategy Framework and Guidelines. I think the clicker is not working. Go. Thank you. Unique to the SCAG region, SB 375 states that a sub-regional council of governments and the County Transportation Commission may work to propose sustainable community strategy and alternative planning strategy. And that is the option for a sub-region to do their own SES in general. And so with that, SCAG creates at the start of every process for the regional transportation plan and sustainable community strategy, a framework and guidelines that outlines the expectations of this process. So focusing on what these guidelines are related to, it's our state requirement, which is the SES, and an SES must forecast future population and employment and housing, include greenhouse gas reduction emission strategies, and report performance measures, as well as be developed in consultation with stakeholders and the public. And so how would sub-regional delegation work? So if a sub-region so chooses, they would need to notify SCAG by January 30th of the start of next year. And then we go into an MOU, and then that COG participates in our growth forecasting process, develops their own SES, has that SES approved by their governing boards, and submits that to CARB, and then or submits that to the SCAG, and then we would incorporate that into the regional SES, and then do our typical public outreach process and adopt the plan as scheduled, which is planned for the spring of 2028. If subregions don't delegate, this would be the process. All COGs would be encouraged to participate in our growth forecasting process. And then we would develop the SES for the whole region and conduct public outreach and adopt the plan. Important to note that we do engage the COGs throughout the process. We have working groups and meetings to do so. And then the data and tools that we have identified that we have for our local jurisdictions are available regardless of the sub-regional SES delegation. And so if this if framework and guidelines is adopted by the regional council, if you recommend that and the regional council does adopt it, the deadline for subregions to notify SCAG for delegating to do their own SES would be, again, January 30th. We'd go into and have those MOUs approved to move forward with that process. We've included in the attachment to the guidelines a preliminary milestone schedule so that regions are aware of when different milestones needed to be met. And then that is all, I think, in regard to the framework. Some of the things that were updated since the last cycle were just, of course, the reference years, as well as more recent policy resolutions that have been adopted by the regional council, and a better description of the updated tools and resources that SCAG offers to the subregions and local jurisdictions. Thank you for your time and appreciate your recommendation for adoption of these guidelines.
Well, thank you for the presentation. So what we'll do is we'll try and see right now if we have any member comments of the speaker. Yes.
Just one quick question. Have we ever had a sub-regional delegation that decided to do their own determinations? Or so that was my only question.
Yes, the first and only time was for the 2012 plan, and Orange County had opted at that time.
Great, thank you.
Right, any other member comments that are in attendance online?
I don't see any raised hand.
Okay. With that, also for the public, does the public in attendance or online have any comments for the speaker?
No one online.
All right, seeing none. Well, thank you very much for the update. I appreciate it. So we're going to go ahead now and move the item. I'm looking for a motion.
I would move approval of the framework.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny Cross. I appreciate it. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, your name. You've got them all memorized. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Dale Welty.
Pardon me?
Dale Welty.
Welty. Okay. So second by Welty. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Anna Beltran, Daniel Brotman, Martha Cardenas Singh, Margaret Clark,
Yes.
Jenny Crosswhite,
Yes.
Ned Davis,
Aye.
Rick Dennison,
Dennison, yes.
Carmen Hernandez. Carmen
Yes.
Hernandez, thank you. Sherry Horn,
Horn, I.
Britt Huff, Brian Joes, Joe Kelmick,
Yes.
Stephen Leash, Elaine Litzer, Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Yasmin Imani McMorrin,
Yes.
Daniel Ramos,
Ramos, yes.
Jennifer Stark, Tamala Takahashi,
Yes.
Connor Trout,
Yes.
Stephanie Bergen,
Yes.
Dale Welty.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the motion for item 3 passes with 15 votes yes, 0 votes no, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you very much for the results of the vote, and thank you for everyone. So we're going to move on now to our next item. This is item number 4 on your agenda, Energy and Environment Committee Outlook and future agenda items. And looks like Ryan is getting put in place. So Ryan Wolf will be our presenter.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Ryan Wolf. I'm the manager of Sustainable Resilient Development here at SCAG. I'm just briefly going to go over what we have scheduled over the next several meetings for this committee. Just to note that we don't have a lot of meetings this year. We have a number of conflicts. We have some holiday conflicts. We also have a January meeting that would fall basically right on New Year's or right after it. So I don't think anyone necessarily wants to be there. We also have some joint policy committees, which obviously you'll be with CHD and Transportation Committee to look at those. So we've done our best to kind of put a lot of interesting items on here, ranging from action items that we have to move forward, as well as some informational items. But of course, is as we're going through this year, if there's items that you see that are coming up that are, you know, timely, please, you're able to put those forward. What we would ask is that you pull this item from the consent calendar moving forward, and just note that you're interested in hearing an item. And then from that point, we'll go back with staff as well as the chair and vice chair to go ahead and talk about how and when to put it in and what action to take on that. So with that, I'm just going to go over what we have on tap, as well as just a reminder of what this committee generally brings before you. So of course, in the name Energy and Environment Committee, those are two of the key things, both energy and environment. We will be looking at matters of environmental compliance, issues related to resilience, climate change, pollution reduction, those types of things, as well as our energy system moving forward. So just taking a quick glance at the calendar, September, obviously this is this month, we have a few items on tap. October, we have some conflicts with the Jewish holidays, so we will be dark during that time. Moving into November, we wanted to bring forward some extreme heat strategies for you. Obviously, we want to look at, in that item, looking at both inland strategies, such as those that are relevant to the desert areas, obviously, because that is where extreme heat hits the most, but as well as coastal areas and those types of things. So we'll be bringing some best practices before you. We also want to talk about green stormwater infrastructure. You know, we are probably in between these cycles of atmospheric rivers right now, but we could be back in that really quickly. So obviously, it's really critical that we take a look at those issues. And then we'll give you an update on Connect SoCal implementation in November as well. Moving into December, that will be a joint policy committee. That's our economic summit update that we did last year as well, and we'll be doing this year during December. January, as I mentioned, no meetings during that. And then February, we have vehicle to grid technologies. This is, looking forward where vehicles are actually feeding power back into the grid and functioning as storage and helping to address demand issues. We also want to talk about nature-based strategies flooding and wildfires, and how we can take green approaches to essentially help to reduce risks from those. Moving to March, we'll have a joint policy committee on the Connect SoCal policy framework, because we are getting back into the cycle here very rapidly. And then in April, we'll talk about resilient utility infrastructure. We do have a study that will be kicking off on this in coming months, so we want to provide a preview of what that will look like, what types of issues. And then, of course, capital improvement plans and integrating resilience into that, because that's critical for making our plans into reality. Moving into May, of course, we have General Assembly. And then in June, we're going to take a look at some climate finance tools, as well as artificial intelligence and data centers. I'm sure you all are, learning about the power demands from those, as well as the potential trade-offs with using water to cool them. So these are some of the items. If you have others, please feel free to suggest them. With that, I'll stop and take any questions.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Do we have any questions from the committee? Yes, I saw Frostlight has got her
just one
flag
quick
up.
question. Back in the beginning of the calendar year, we had been talking about the wildfire stuff, and I know staff was working on some toolkit things, and I didn't see any of that in here. Do we have an idea of what the timeline is for that toolkit, and will any of that come back through this committee?
So right now we're still working on wrapping up that toolkit. We are going to be reviewing it internally here very shortly. And so what we plan to do is to release that as part of one of our Toolbox Tuesdays. I'm going to guess right now, probably October, but we'll come back to you with a specific date. And then we are happy to engage individually with any of you if you're interested in it.
Okay, thank you.
And I see, well, I'll grab Member Clark first, and go ahead.
Okay. On the same line, the wildfires, I'm very concerned right now because our kids have 2 cabins up in the Sierras, and it's been burning for a week and a half. And I have some questions as far as preparation. It's one thing when you're, the Eaton fires and all that, those were buildings close together. But when you're in the forest, my basic question is, okay, how much greenhouse gas emissions, CO2, whatever, adding to climate change happens from fires compared to, oil plants or whatever, things that we generally think we have to clamp down on. Is there any study about that? Because I have some issues on the preparation for the forest, but just if you could answer that.
There is a lot of research on this. It's a very complicated issue because there is also a natural fire regime in California where there's naturally occurring fires. Historically, there was also managed fires.
Yeah.
And then there is, our current fires, which are exacerbated by fuels management over a long time, as well as increasing temperatures. So I don't have an easy answer for you, but I think what we could do is we could integrate that into one of the items that's coming forward. I think it's early in the new year, and we can consider that and bring back some information.
Thank you, because the reason I'm asking that is as far as the overall where we're going to spend our money and our time. What about cloud seeding? What about eliminating the bark beetle dead trees? One of my issues, if you don't, do we have time to, are we on a tight schedule here? Okay, because I was up there where it's burning, well, hopefully, God willing, it's not going to burn, but I was up there just 3 weeks ago. And for 3 years, the trees, the bark beetles kill a certain tree. So they chop the tree down, but then they leave the pile of, to me, that's kindling. That's what you would do if you wanted to have a little barbecue, a little fire pit or something. They don't remove it. I have pictures of that. It's very frustrating. And I was just up there with Edison at their big creek, and we toured the creek fire. And as we were driving around, it's the same area, and I was pointing out, there's one of those. If they're not taking those out, then if a wildfire causes more pollution than something that doesn't add that much, should we have a new look at this? Because to me, the way they were managing that, I would think it would be better to leave one dead tree there, among others that are lively, than to have chop the tree down. And I asked the question, why don't they get rid of these piles? Oh, they don't have enough money. Well, come on. Now what's going to happen?
So I can't comment specifically on that aspect of it. I would say one of the key things in our regional resilience toolkit is is different types of planning processes that communities and in partnership agencies can take to identify key local issues, and then go ahead and seek funding to address it. And so in that case, that's one of our key goals as an agency, is to be able to provide that information, tools, technical assistance that local jurisdictions can really pursue solutions that make sense for them. And so that will be in the regional resilience toolkit, and in terms of how whether it be Big Bear or the other jurisdictions can identify those processes and pursue them.
And is it possible to look at preventative measures like cloud seeding, where they make sure there's some rain that wets this area down when we're in such a drought, the dry conditions and everything, thinking about preventing instead of just reacting?
So I think at all these processes, it's about identifying the potential options of range that are on the table, and identifying what is most appropriate and most effective and cost effective. So I can't speak to the cost effectiveness of cloud seeding specifically.
I just like to throw some new ideas out, because it seems like we're just sitting there and it's all dry and we're going to have more wildfires, and oh well. But if there's a way to prevent it, let's look at new ideas. We've gone to the moon. Anyway, I'll shut up.
Appreciate that.
Right. And yes, member Imani McMorrin.
It's McMorrin. My first name's Yasmin Amani. I know it's a little tricky, but thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yes. I really appreciate this overview. I'm newish to this committee. I really appreciate the work that colleagues have been doing that predates my time on the committee. One of the things, while I'm excited about the overview and wish we had a bit more meetings, but it's who says that? But I'm a little curious about, I think a lot, when I think about energy and the environment, I think a lot about housing, particularly in Southern California, because of the sprawl and how everything is interconnected, and the intersectionality of all of these issues that we all face in our respective communities. I wondered how housing and any recommendations or best practices that are, and that's connected with wildfires, and just, there was a bit about the capital improvement projects and the resiliency there, but is housing going to be something that we're lifting up or in this upcoming year? This is something I'd like to see.
Sure. So for most of the time, our CHD committee takes up housing issues specifically. There are some more energy related issues which we'll handle in here. So I would look both some of those to come to here, but I think more primarily to come to CHD. And we'll also note that the resilient utility infrastructure item, which is early in next year, part of our objective with looking at resilient utility infrastructure is ensuring that there is enough backbone infrastructure to encourage housing, to accelerate housing, because oftentimes that is a barrier from a cost perspective in terms of making housing more feasible. So that will be something that we will be focusing on through this study, which is going to launch in 2026, and we'll take a look at that. But I would also encourage you to look at CHD for items that are relevant to that, and we can certainly look at their outlook and see if there's an opportunity to fit something in there too.
Thank you so much for clarifying. Appreciate it.
All right, great questions. Thank you very much. Member Kalnick, please.
Thank you. I notice in the schedule of upcoming topics and so forth, one of the issues will be dealing with coastal flooding. I'd like us to maybe look at the corollary to that, and that's coastal erosion. Coastal erosion is becoming a larger and larger problem, not only because of the fact that the coast is eroding, but that the solutions, there's a lot of competition for the resources, whether it's I think, single dredge that's available on the West Coast, to funding, to gathering the attention of the Army Corps of Engineers, who I think historically focus more on the Gulf and the East Coast. And it's been, I know, for our city, definitely an issue and a struggle. And I see that happening, in San Clemente area. So I think it would be important for us to engage in that, I think.
Agree. And we can shape that item to ensure that that's a consideration in it.
All right, thank you. And thank you. Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Member
On
Parfait.
that topic, as you talk about that, the city of Ventura has been very successful in some nature-based solutions for combating coastal erosion. And so it might be interesting to talk to them, because I know they did a pilot project and it was so successful they were able to get funding to extend it down that portion of the coastline that's there by the fairgrounds. So
yeah,
that might be worth part of the conversation if that's something that is going to come back.
I mean, typically we like to lift up some real-world examples as opposed to just abstract, policy language. So I think it would be great to include consideration for space for that in that item.
On the point that our new member, what is your name again?
Yasmin Imani.
Yasmin Imani McMorrin from Culver City.
Oh, good. Thank you. Welcome. When you were talking about the housing issues, I know that's part of another committee, but my big thing has always been unintended consequences. And some of the bills, that SB 79 that's coming down, they think we need to build so much housing. We don't build it. We zone for it. Anyway, don't get me going. But they don't require yard space for trees. Trees clean the air and reduce the heat island effect. Okay, so you're hurting one thing by supposedly helping another. So is there any way we can advocate for better? Well, I don't know if it'd do any good with the bills up there, but it's very frustrating to me to think that they're not going to have trees. And so we're going to get worse pollution, more heat, more fires, which may cause more pollution in the long run, like I said before. So
Sure. So urban greening is a really critical cornerstone of how we see our resilience working moving forward. And so in a number of our studies, including one which you'll hear an overview today, the concept of greening and the services it provides, heat mitigation, carbon sequestration, all of those things will be is a theme moving forward, including how to fund those strategies. So we'll certainly concentrate on it in a number of items throughout this committee.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for the comments. We're going to move to our online members, and I see Member Botman has his hand raised. The floor is yours, sir.
Hi, thank you. I'm a new member also, so I don't know some of the topics that this group has discussed over the past year or two. But one thing I'd be interested in us looking at is the question of methane leakage from agriculture and wastewater treatment. I understand there's some new technologies, satellite technologies that can better measure these leaks. And given we know that methane is a very potent greenhouse gas, I was curious if this was something we could discuss and perhaps advocate for a better measurement and then ultimately, obviously, mitigation of those leaks.
We can look into it. We certainly agriculture is one of the focus areas for one of the studies we're just launching right now, which you'll hear about shortly. But let's look into that and get back to you with our thoughts about how that fits in.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Is there anyone else that would like to speak briefly on this item? I just want to say thank you very much, Ryan. This is obviously a very important topic for us, and I think we need to continue to discuss this to make sure the list is completed. When we talk about our environment, I look at all the other things that were mentioned in your housing, but everything we do, we build within the environment. So for me, this is probably one of the most important committees to build the foundation that everything we do is laid upon. But it's not as fun and as interesting as a lot of stuff that we build like Legos. But we are an important committee, and I appreciate everyone's comment on this item.
Thank you. Appreciate all your comments and feedback.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next item. This is item number 5, and this is for Innovative Clean Transit Regional Assessment Study Introduction. So this will be new, apparently, information for us. And Priscilla Frida Egmeg? I don't want to tear up your name.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Oops. Okay. I'm Priscilla Frady. I'm a Senior Regional Planner in the Mobility Planning and Goods Movement Department. And thank you for the opportunity to share this study with you. Just to kick off, and many of you may already be aware, in December 2018, the California Air Resources Board adopted the Innovative Clean Transit Regulation. And what this regulation actually has two main requirements. The first one is that transit agencies have to publish a zero-emission bus rollout plan. And then they also do have a zero-emission purchase requirement by transit agency for a specific year, mainly for fulfillment of the requirements in the ICT regulation. PAB set the transit agencies for whether you are a large transit agency or a small transit agency. And mainly for large transit agencies are those that operate about 65 buses in annual maximum service, and they are either in South Coast or San Joaquin Valley, and or operate in an urbanized area with a population of at least 200,000, or have at least 100 buses in annual maximum service. And they classify small transit agencies as recipients or subrecipients of urbanized area formula that have less than 100 vehicles, and basically are those that do not operate any fixed road guideway. They also provided some exempts for some agencies, so mainly for Caltrans, Caltrain, the ferry operations, school districts, and some operators that don't necessarily operate any service to the public directly. The adoption schedule, as I mentioned, is based on whether a large transit agency or a small transit agency. And mainly what happens is that for large transit agencies, they had a requirement to provide their zero-emission bus rollout plans by July 2020. And small transit agencies 3 years later had that obligation to fulfill as well. Mainly for joint groups, I believe it's based on what the size of those agencies are and what the specific requirements are, and CAB made sure to specify that directly for joint groups. One of the things that I wanted to kind of briefly share is just the fact that Connect SoCal 2024, we do include the plans to support investments in transit assets, and this also helps to support our mobility goal of building and maintaining an integrated multimodal transportation network. And we know that the efforts towards zero emission bus assets are part of the actions and efforts to ensure an improved air quality and to help minimize our greenhouse gas. And this is also to help to provide a safe, reliable, and supportive public transit service throughout the region and to meet those greenhouse gas targets. And so as we're working towards this, and maybe some of you may recall, SCAG has already initiated some work related to innovative clean transit or transportation technology in general in 2023 when we adopted the Clean Transportation Technology Policy. And the policy actually led to the development of the Clean Technology Compendium. Compendium mainly looked at zero and near emission transportation technologies and also included some of the gaps and challenges related to charging and fueling infrastructure. This was studied that cut across mainly public transportation as well as all the other transportation technologies. And so you may be wondering where we are right now in terms of the SCAG region. And as you can see from here, this is based on data from the National Transit Database. Many of our transit agencies are already taking the lead in deploying zero emission vehicles. One of the highest ones that we see, this is almost about 80% of the zero emission buses that are being deployed in the SCAG region are electric vehicles. And the hydrogen is currently taking a step slightly behind battery electric vehicles. If you wanted to look even more at numbers, this is also based on data from the National Transit Database. We can see from here, we do have some agencies already leading the effort. Technically, the top four, LA Metro, Antelope Valley Transit Agency, Anaheim Transit leads slightly ahead of Foothill Transit, which is interesting because this Foothill started a while back, but Anaheim has been doing a lot too. And some of the other small agencies that you can see here, there's already efforts going on to deploy these zero emission vehicles. I just wanted to share with you, these are some of the examples of the zero emission buses that we see across our region, in case you've seen one or yet to see one. So in order to just support the work that's already been happening and ongoing around the region, what we're trying to do with this study is to make sure we build on ongoing efforts to support the deployment of these zero emission vehicles by the 2040 deadline that CAB requires. And also just to make sure that the transit agencies are prepared and positioned for the deployment and to deploy and to implement the zero emission bus rollout plans. And so the study mainly, what we plan to do is to make sure that we assess some of the existing fleet. And so we're going to be looking at existing conditions. We want to be able to assess what are some of the gaps that are in the region, what some of the challenges are, so that we can better assess opportunities for enhanced coordination across the deployment of zero emission vehicles across the region. And also we want to use this as an opportunity to identify potentially what SCAG could do specifically as it pertains to leveraging some of the opportunities for assistance through the funding sources that we administer. I just really wanted to clarify that we've had some questions that this is a study and it's not an audit. And so this effort is not a way to audit what any transit agency is already doing. We just really want to support and coordinate the efforts already ongoing across the region. I also wanted to clarify that we're already working and coordinating with the state, specifically Caltrans and CARB, on the efforts there. So we're not duplicating any work that they've done already. The project started, or the study started in June 2025, and we're hoping to be completed by June 2026. Some of the key things that we will be working through is stakeholder engagement. And with that, what we really want to do is starting from here, and also we provided an update to TC today. We will continue to do that engagement and also engage with the Regional Transit Technical Advisory Committee. We want to make sure that all our transit agencies are on board in this process, and also we want to be able to provide them updates as we go so they can provide feedback, and you as well, the SCAG policy committees. We also plan to have targeted outreach. Mainly, we plan to have meetings not only with the transit agencies who are currently already deploying or have deployed zero emission vehicles, but I also want to reach out to bus manufacturers, charging manufacturers, and utility providers. And we're going to be reaching out to them just so we can understand what they do in that market, and so we can be able to incorporate all of that into the analysis that we do as part of this work. We will incorporate the surveys or any interactions that we have into the project research for the best practices for the existing conditions, which will help us to develop an implementation action plan. And potentially what we plan to do is to have some type of a toolkit for the transit agencies that are still struggling to figure out where to start from. In terms of next steps, as I mentioned, we'll continue to coordinate with the transit agencies through the Regional Transit TAC. We will be providing feedback to the AAC, the Transportation Committee, as we go. We just want to make sure that everyone is updated with the process and the work that we're doing so that they can receive feedback to help with the final report for this study. And this concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll go ahead and take an opportunity now for allowed member comments for Priscilla on the item. I see Member Crosswhite.
I have a question. So as you're doing this study, are you looking at all at how changes in federal priorities might impact the rollout of zero emissions vehicles, especially in some of the smaller agencies? Because I know that agencies that have already started the adoption process, a lot of those have benefited from funding that was available, and those agencies that were smaller and may not have had the capacity yet, maybe running into issues in financing charging stations or hydrogen infrastructure, or so is that part of the study too, or?
Yes, that's part of the study. Actually, last week when we met with Caltrans and also with the consultants, one of the things that we're looking into is, maybe you are aware, so the bus and bus facilities grant funding from FTA as well as the Low-No. Initially, you used to have, it has to be like zero emission buses, and with the current administration, they changed that to the extent that even if your initial grant application you submitted and awarded for a zero emission bus, now you can come back and change it to a near zero. And so that's some of the discussions that we've been having, just really trying to figure out how some of the things happening there could change what is happening here. I do understand also from CAB and Caltrans from our last meeting that the governor had signed that we're still strong ongoing. Nothing has changed on the CAB side of things as far as the regulation is concerned. And we're not changing it to reflect, for example, what is happening at the federal level. And so hopefully that would be a good motivation for the transit agencies to keep going, and also just to help them with the deployment of the vehicle. The deployment of the vehicles, and also implementing the zero emission bus rollout plans.
All right, thank you for that. I see Member Takahashi online with her hand raised. The floor is yours.
Right, thank you. I'm really glad to see that we're doing the study on this. Thank you for pursuing this. I'm sure that you're going to be looking in the study on issues of charging times and battery storage and the length that the charge buses will have and how long they will last. And I guess my question is that as you're looking at that, will you also be looking at possible impacts on kind of local bus networks as well, and jurisdictions where potentially, for example, there might be a higher need for bus depots, more localized bus depots where they can stop and charge either the middle of their route, or if if the route's long enough that they need charging depots in between. Also, possible interaction with local bus lines, and if the bus lines that are local go EV, can we charge at their stations too? And can we coordinate together in order to not duplicate efforts and to be able to support each other in that infrastructure? And then lastly, also bus availability, and then the production of EV buses, electric buses, and how that might impact on our local jurisdictions trying to get access ourselves to EV buses. I'm wondering if that will be included in your study as well.
Yes, we will be including all of that in the study. In fact, we had a meeting way back with Sunline Transit when they had some issues with their zero emission buses. And one of the things that they talked about was if we could initiate an opportunity for shared infrastructure. And so I know they're up there, and so it might be a little bit challenging for them or anyone to reach in that aspect. But that is one of the things that we definitely have talked about, how we could have coordination efforts or have some infrastructure that could support 2 to 3 or 4 or more transit agencies in a particular area, because it's very important. I think what happened to Sunline provides that opportunity to look into that. And definitely we will be looking at bus building and infrastructure as well. Again, a lot is changing, a lot has changed, but that's also one of the things that we're looking at as part of the best practices, and also reviewing the current existing infrastructure in the region to see what we could incorporate in a report as sort of like a best practice and in the toolkit of what we could do in our region to support as we keep growing these remission infrastructure. I know it's complicated, but we're hoping to be able to cover the ground. So this is a solid document when we're done that all our transit agencies could use.
Great, appreciate that.
Member Crosswhite, did you have a follow-up question? Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. I had one thought on it that I look at as we are such a diverse area and so large of a region, and some areas have greater spans than others. You showed a really good chart on the adoption of different types of buses and how they're the energy that they use to provide service. But it would be nice to kind of see some kind of barometer between what we started with and where we're going, to see which of those choices are gaining or losing favor for adoption, so we can narrow it down to very specific energy sources as opposed to having a lot of different types as we build out infrastructure. And I think, as Ryan said earlier, we're certainly going to be challenged with the adoption of new, data centers and the power systems for those, and we will have a direct competition for probably getting those sources for bus use. So I just want to kind of see where we're going, like because there's some really specific types in your pie chart that you had, and they're just really small slivers.
Yeah.
But is that just the seed of what's going to take off, or is the 50% of the chart in growth or decline? So that would be the one thing I'd look for, and I really appreciate it. I know there's a lot of back information that you have, and I'll be looking forward to seeing that more in the future.
Sure, thank you for the feedback.
All right. So is there anyone in the public that wanted to speak on the item? Questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. Great presentation.
Sure. Before we move on to the next item, I don't believe we took public comment on item number 4. So I would request that we just go back to item 4 and see if there's any members of the public that wanted to speak on that item before we move forward.
Great move. Thank you for the reminder on that. I apologize. So as council said, we may have skimmed over item number 4, and this was also a presentation, Energy Environment Committee Outlook and Future Agenda Items, and that was the one that Ryan Wolf spoke on. Do we have any public comment online or in attendance wishing to speak?
I see no raised hands, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, and thank you for clarifying. All right, we'll continue to move on. So we are now to item number 6, Natural and Agriculture Lands Benefit Study. And India Brookover will be presenting for us today.
Hi, right, good morning, committee. My name is India Brookover, and I'm a senior planner in SCAG's Sustainable and Resilient Development Department. Today, I'll be providing an overview of the natural and agricultural lands economic and resilience benefits study, which we kicked off in April of this year. So the impetus for this project is based in Connect SoCal, which has goals for the strategic conservation, enhancement, and restoration of natural and ag lands. Natural and ag lands play an important role in maintaining and enhancing regional and local resilience, as well as carbon sequestration and avoided greenhouse gas emissions. This study will focus on the ecosystem services of natural and ag lands, specifically reduce climate emissions and resilience and adaptation benefits, such as water storage, air quality, and hazard risk reduction. We will also be looking at the economic benefits from local food production, jobs, and tourism. So this study is specifically designed to fill an information gap on the potential range of natural and ag lands, ecosystem services, and hazard resilience benefits that could be used to inform local policy and planning. This project will also provide information on funding and financing available to jurisdictions to preserve, enhance, and/or restore natural and agricultural lands. Because of this region's size and diversity of land types, this study will estimate the range of potential services and benefits rather than aggregate them. So this study will also explore farm worker housing as a separate standalone study. It will provide an evaluation of existing farm worker housing stock, proximity to workplaces, and identify funding opportunities to increase farm worker housing affordability. And as I mentioned, because it is a standalone study, we will be reporting on it separately moving forward with the project. Okay, thank you. So this is an overview of the stakeholder process. I think we're missing a slide here. Let's see. All right, well, I'll just provide an overview of the stakeholder process. We are currently starting up with interviews and listening sessions. Moving forward, stakeholder engagement is going to happen throughout the length of the study. We will also be holding stakeholder working groups to provide feedback on materials. And we'll also be including stipends for community-based organizations. And as I said, stakeholder feedback will inform the study in all stages. So this study will specifically provide an analysis and implementation tools, including an assessment of ecosystem services and resilience benefits, a baseline analysis of natural and agricultural lands, and funding strategies for conservation efforts. It will all culminate in a white paper and resource appendix. So here is our timeline. Right now, we are in the first phase of research and technical analysis, and that will go through the summer of 2026. And then we'll enter the phase where we will be developing the white paper and resource appendix, which should be released in the spring of 2027. And following that, we will be providing webinars and training. And as I said, stakeholder engagement will be going throughout the process. And so that's it for my presentation. Thank you.
India, thank you very much. We'll see if any members have any comments for the presenter today. Yes, Member Lopez.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention with reference to the farm worker housing study, the County of Ventura embarked on a study that was completed in 2024. And so just wanted to mention that as a point of reference as you all begin that process of the work that the county did. And I believe there was some support from SCAG at some point in that process to see that through. So just wanted to bring it up as if there's any support there that can help in your work.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're actually using that study to inform the study moving forward. So.
Yeah, great news. Good to hear that connections already existed for bringing it up. Any other members? Yes, Member Clark.
I assume you were in the room earlier with all my questions. I think a lot of this is going to you as far as the value of our farmlands and trees and how they clean the air and how we can balance all this stuff. Because I think we're going down the wrong track on some of these things. So I hope that some of those questions will be answered.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Looks like we have a member online. Member Lister, I see your hand raised. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Just trying to understand a little bit of the intended outcomes of the study. And specifically, is this going to also look at some of incorporate water resource availabilities, recommendations for, is that part of this, the breadth of the study in terms of resilience? Is that part of the analysis?
Yeah, we're going to be looking at how natural ecosystem services can provide water storage, water filtration, all those things that we've been looking into.
Well, I guess more specifically, I'm wondering about the California Aqueduct, some of the discussions about changing or modernizing. It's been a discussion for years. Will there be any recommendations or anything that will explore that water resource?
We're not going to get into specific infrastructure. We're going to be looking more at the ecosystem services of natural and agricultural lands. So I think developed infrastructure would not be in the scope of the study.
Yeah, this is Ryan. I would just say I would frame it as what is the role of natural and agricultural lands in the region's water resilience specifically, because they do offer a lot of opportunities for groundwater storage, those types of things. So we won't be getting into, aqueducts, delta water conveyance, any of those things. It's about, what role these lands specifically play in water resilience.
And I've been using the term ecosystem services. I think it's sort of synonymous with the term we've been using, nature-based solutions. So if that provides any clarity.
Okay. It feels like there's a missing piece in that whole conversation, but I understood. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Seeing no one's hand raised, we'll go ahead and move into public comment. Anyone in attendance or online with a public comment?
I see no raised hands.
Okay. Thank you very much, India. Appreciate the presentation. I think we'll be adding a little bit more on item number 7, and this will be Ryan Wolf again presenting ecosystem services overview. This might tie a lot of conversation today together.
Sure. So I'll introduce our panel today. We have 2 experts who can kind of speak and provide an overview to ecosystem services. Obviously, ecosystem services can be a pretty nebulous term if you're not exposed to it frequently. So we have 2 speakers. B. Covington, who's going to be from Green Economics, has led a lot of their sustainability work over the years, and she'll provide a general overview of what ecosystem services are, as well as some examples of some place-based examples of them as well. And then the second would be Margot Flynn, who's from the Sacramento Valley Regional Conservation District, or the Resource Conservation District. And she'll talk about some of her work specifically with farmers on carbon sequestration and kind of what motivates them and those types of things as well. And this will, as I would just really ground this in the fact that India's presentation talks a lot about what this study will do. And then these will provide you just a little bit more clarity and a little bit of a preview of some of the key considerations that study will explore. So with that, I will turn it over to B, who will kick us off.
Great, thanks. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all today. As Ryan said, my name is Bea Covington, and I am a principal economist and the Director of Sustainability Services at Green Economics. We are leading the team that is conducting the Natural and Agricultural Lands Economic and Resilience Benefits Study. Green Economics is a small women-owned firm based in Washington State, and our team also includes Highland Economics, Land IQ, and Estelano Advisors. And we've done work similar to this in Washington, Oregon, New Mexico, and in other parts of California. And so today we're going to be talking specifically about ecosystem services, what they are, how we measure them, and more specifically, how preserving and improving ecosystem services can contribute to enhancing resilience. And it was really interesting to look at the overview of topics that you all are going to be talking about in your coming meetings and to hear some of your questions and conversation. And I think what this presentation will do is primarily give you some language and some insights so that as you move through some of the sessions that you're going to be having in the future as a committee, you'll be able to think about ecosystem services as a tool in your toolkit when you start to identify strategies to address some of the topics that are on your leaderboard for the coming months. I very much like interaction, and so I would encourage folks to, there's a couple places in my presentation where I'm going to ask you for some feedback. So go ahead and, speak up as it makes sense or put comments in the chat if you're virtual, because I do want to use this as an opportunity to introduce you to these concepts and to also get some sense of what's important and interesting to you as a committee, so that will help us frame our work as we're going forward. So let's go to the next slide. One of the things that I have learned in this business is that there are lots of terms that mean lots of different things to different people. And depending on where you sit and what's important to you, those terms might be defined differently. And so I'd kind of like to get a sense of what comes to mind for you when you hear the term resilience. Is anybody willing to give me a shout out of what resilience, what comes to your mind?
Bea, this is Ryan. We're a little pressed for time, so I'm wondering if we could just go through the presentation and then allow afterwards for the members to kind of answer any of these questions as part of their questions and comments.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine. So we'll skip to the next slide, move to the next slide then. And so this kind of is our agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about resilience and ecosystem services and how ecosystem services contribute to resilience. And then we've got some specific examples of ecosystem service projects in the SCAG region. So you can see how these concepts are actually being integrated into planning and decision making in the region. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so SCAG defines resilience as the capacity of the region's built social, economic, and natural systems to anticipate and effectively respond to changing conditions, acute shocks, and chronic stressors by creating multiple opportunities for sustainable, thriving, and equitable future. So when we start to think about ecosystem services and what they are, we're looking we want to always have this definition in the back of our head so that we can start to ask the question, how can a particular ecosystem service be enhanced or leveraged to help us achieve this state of resilience as SCAG defines it? So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay. So we know that an ecosystem is a community of animals and plants that interact with each other and with their physical environment. And an ecosystem includes both the physical and chemical components, things like soil and water and nutrients, as well as organisms, microscopic bacteria to large animals. And ecosystems also include interactions between all the organisms in a given habitat and people. This term started to come into the lexicon in the 70s and the 80s, and it really started to become widely used in the 90s. And in 2001, the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment really jump-started the application and use of ecosystem services as a concept by providing a common language for scientists and policymakers and practitioners to discuss nature's contributions to human welfare. And in particular, the assessment established these 4 standard categories for characterizing ecosystem services: supporting, provisioning, regulating, and cultural. And so when we talk about supporting services, the underlying ecosystem processes that are necessary for everything else to go on is what we consider to be supporting services. And these are things like nutrient cycling, nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon cycles, primary production, photosynthesis, plant growth, oxygen production, habitat provision for species, maintenance of genetic diversity, all of these kinds of things. And while humans don't directly benefit from these services, they're essential for maintaining ecosystems that provide the other three categories. And so the key distinction here is that supporting services are necessary for ecosystem function, and then the other three categories represent direct benefits to human well-being. So provisioning is the next category, kind of moving clockwise around the schematic. And this is the most obvious one, I think, for a lot of people, but it's also counterintuitive because often when we're talking about ecosystem services, we don't think about provisioning. Things like this is the piece of providing tangible goods, the tangible goods and services that nature provide. Things like food crops, livestock, fish, timber, fiber, genetic resources, biomedical resources for plant stocks for natural medicines, and energy resources. And these are direct benefits that we get from nature. And these benefits are often the easiest to understand and quantify because traditional market systems are already capturing the value of these kinds of ecosystem services. The next category is regulating. And when we talk about regulating, we're talking about the benefits that the ecosystem provides in the regulation of natural processes. And these include climate regulation, things like carbon sequestration, temperature control, water regulation, flood control, drought prevention, water purification, waste treatment, disease control, pollination, and natural hazard protection. And these are services that often go unnoticed, but are critical for maintaining the conditions that are sustainable for life. And you all talked a little bit about erosion and flood control in Ventura, and that's the city of Ventura, and that's a really good example of a community that is thinking about how ecosystem services that wetlands and other natural systems provide and how those can be integrated into resilience planning. So that was a really great example. Cultural services is the last category, and this category captures the non-material benefits that people obtain from ecosystems. Things like spiritual enrichment, cognitive development. If you've heard about forest bathing, that kind of falls in this category. Also, this is the category where we capture all of the indigenous relationships that exist with nature and with culture, and we capture and value all of those relationships and all those partnerships and all of those historic relationships between indigenous cultures and nature. This also includes cultural identity and heritage, and this category also includes things like ecotourism. And so these are all services that contribute to human well-being in ways that can't easily be quantified, but it's very clear that human well-being is dependent on nature. The next slide. We often see these things, these concepts, moving out from the four quadrants. We also see these concepts depicted as a wheel, and I like this wheel visualization because it makes it clear that you can't consider these ecosystem services in a linear fashion. They are all, and you can't cherry pick and prioritize. They're all part of a dynamic system. They're connected to each other. It's a wheel that's moving and is advancing. Now, not every ecosystem is going to provide every type of service. So as you start to think about ecosystem services and how to harness and enhance them to improve resilience, it's important to understand the biophysical characteristics of the geography that you're talking about and that you're working in so that you can identify ecosystem services that are actually present where you are. So let's go to the next slide. So thinking about the SCAG region, and I'll just give you some examples. I was going to kind of do some interactive stuff here, but I won't since we're pressed for time. When I think about supporting services in the SCAG region, the things that come to mind for me, and I would invite you in your mind to maybe write on a piece of paper what supporting services you you think of that are specific to the communities that you serve. But we're talking about things like the value of the agricultural soils in the Central and Imperial Valley. You're talking about the fact that your region provides habitat for 26 threatened and endangered species, red-legged frogs and snowy plovers and those kinds of things. You're talking about the nursery habitat for fish. You're talking about groundwater recharge, photosynthesis that occurs in the Angeles and San Bernardino National Forest, or the biodiversity that you see in the Channel Islands Marine Sanctuary. These are examples of supporting services that are present and important in your region. Thinking about provisioning, again, you've got farming in the Santa Clara River Valley. You have water filtration and storage that goes on in the Angeles and San Bernardino and Cleveland and Los Padres National Forest. You've got the Santa Clara River and the steelhead trout. And the list is, you all are probably, I'm hoping that your brains are popping with ideas of provisioning services that are going on. Regulating services is a big area. Again, you're right on the Pacific Ocean, so the ocean itself plays a critical role in regulating and monitoring regional temperatures. We've talked a little bit about coastal wetlands already in Ormond Beach and places in Ventura, and talking about storm surge protection and erosion protection that coastal wetlands provide. You've got carbon storage opportunities, in particular soil carbon storage, and Margot, who's going to follow me, is going to talk a little bit more specifically about soil carbon. And that ecosystem service that is provided in your area. We also are going to talk a little bit about the services, the regulating services that trees provide in terms of heat and air and temperature regulation. Thinking about cultural services, again, you have over 8 million visitors to your national forests. You have a coastline that attracts millions of visitors for wildlife viewing. You have indigenous populations that have historic relationships with your natural areas. So there are lots of examples of ecosystem services in the region. And if you are particularly interested in how to kind of move this concept or these concepts into your thinking and your planning, SCAG actually has on its website a really nice resource. It's called Ecosystem Services, A Guide for Decision Makers. And this is a document that was produced by the World Resources Institute. And it's a little dated, but it's still actually a really good primer. So if you are intrigued by this concept and how to go about integrating ecosystem services as a tool in your toolkit, I would point you to that document, because I think it's about 90 pages long. But it's a really good resource to sort of get your arms around how you start to think and plan and deploy ecosystem services, or enhance or improve ecosystem services as part of planning and decision making. So let's go on and go to the next slide. And so I'm going to give you a couple of examples of projects where there are where activity is going on to either enhance or improve ecosystem services to make contributions to resilience in the SCAG area. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. We're going to look at 3 different types of projects. Some focused on groundwater recharge, one focused on a couple focused on urban health, and then a last group focused on cultural services. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. This is an example of groundwater recharge and the Seven Oaks Dam enhanced recharge project. Groundwater recharge is the natural or artificial process where water moves down from the surface through either precipitation or rivers and replenishes underground aquifers. And this is a project that is an ecosystem services enhancement project in the San Bernardino Mountains. And the idea is to capture and hold and store water longer so that it doesn't run away, so that it has a chance to percolate down and recharge that aquifer. And so it's a really good example of how an infrastructure project is leveraging an ecosystem service function that contributes to overall resilience for the area. Let's go to the next slide. This is an example from Florida, and the reason that we pulled this one in is because it's this similar kind of project where you're looking at capturing and holding water, but this project goes a little bit further in that they are taking the water and they're holding it and they're using it to create wetlands. And these wetland areas are not only retaining water and improving that aquifer recharge function, but because they have wetland areas where people can come and do visits. They've got nature trap pathways through these areas, so they're enhancing people's connection to nature. Because they are establishing wetlands, they're also increasing habitat and biodiversity. So this would be what we would call a multi-benefit project. So you're getting your groundwater recharge, but you're also getting an opportunity to improve habitat, improve species biodiversity, and provide opportunities for communities and public enjoyment to connect with nature. So that's a really good example. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. This is an example of an urban project, and here again, you're getting multi-benefits because when you're talking about this urban greening project, we know that in urban areas, vegetation provides multiple ecosystem services. And if you look at that middle graphic, you can see this idea that you've got trees they're storing carbon, but probably more importantly, in an urban environment, they're also providing clean air. They are reducing temperatures. They're creating shade islands. They are providing some habitat for animals. So to the person who was talking about housing, and you were talking about the trees and there not being enough trees in the housing plan, this is a place where you can start to think about when you're thinking about planning and zoning and codes, you can put in regulations that say we want certain tree densities, we want to have a diversity of tree species that mimics the historic environment, and those are all ways that you can pull ecosystem services into your planning. But this is this urban greening project with Amigos de los Rios and the Emerald Necklace Group, and it is in the San Gabriel Valley. And we know that, as I mentioned, you've got the benefits of greenhouse gas uptake and heat island air quality, and you also can use trees as part of a stormwater management and water regulation system. And then there are those cultural and social benefits that we know that people derive from being in connection with green space. There's some studies out there that say that people who visit green spaces for 30 minutes or more a week have lower rates of depression and high blood pressure. So there are health impacts of creating urban green spaces. So this is a really good example of this kind of a project in your area. So let's go to the next slide. Similar to the Florida project, this is a local example where you all are again, looking at creating urban wetlands, and this provides, water flow. These kinds of wetlands and urban swales can also help with stormwater runoff and stormwater management, reducing urban heat islands, increasing resilience to drought, improving public access, and supporting native species. So this is a great example of an urban project looking at health and well-being. Let's go on to the next slide. Cultural services is the last area. There are myriad cultural services that we consider when we're talking about ecosystem services. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. The one project that we decided to highlight was this Friends of Big Bear Valley. The ecotourism is a significant part of the cultural service provision, and it also has an economic impact on the region. And this is a great example of a project that not only has local buy-in and local significance, but because of the great webcam, you get national and international airtime. I've spent a couple of, I've whiled away many hours looking at that camera. But this is a great example of a way that you can leverage the region to leverage an ecosystem service, not only to protect the habitat and to protect species diversity, provide recreation and education benefits, but ecotourism becomes an economic driver as well. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. The last thing I wanted to talk briefly about is measuring and quantifying ecosystem services. And anytime that you're doing, planning and development, you want to be able to capture the impact that your investment in an ecosystem service has had on a resilience outcome. And there are a number of ways to do this by choosing metrics that can help you quantify the impact that your ecosystem service investment has had on a particular environment. And two projects let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Two projects that are ongoing here in your area that are doing a great job of that are and they're both focused on trees. There's the Urban Forest Program and the Urban Trees Initiative. And these are projects that are collecting data in partnership with communities. And this is another aspect of ecosystem service work. It's a great way to bring communities into the process with you. And so both of these projects are using communities and local tree managers to figure out numbers of keeping track of numbers of trees planted, keeping track of tree growth, keeping track of habitat and species presence in particular areas in ways that leverage communities and community resources to understand the ecosystem services benefits of the projects that are being undertaken. So this was a really rapid run through of the concepts of ecosystem services. My goal really was to give you some terms that you can start to cogitate on and learn more about and start to think about how you can integrate ecosystem services into thinking and planning. And the work that we're going to be doing on the resilience study is going to give you more tools and more information so that you can integrate these ecosystem services into your design and planning going forward. So thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Good morning. I'll try to be relatively quick with this. Hopefully we'll have some time for questions at the end, but if not, I have my contact information on the slide. So my name is Margot Flynn. I'm the Sacramento Valley Soil Hub Coordinator, so I work with the resource conservation districts up north. And I'll talk a little bit about carbon farming and co-benefits, or maybe some of those supporting and regulating ecosystem services. Let's see, slide management. Here we go. And I'm going to bring some of that on-farm perspective to this conversation, and especially the considerations that would be great to include in the study, or at least, have conversations about. So I'll talk a little bit about the context for my work, and then we'll dive more into what carbon farming is exactly, what some of those indirect and direct benefits to farmers and the communities are, calling those indirect benefits co-benefits, and then scale and opportunity. So RCDs have been around for a long time. There's about 95 in the state. I work with 9 of them in the Sacramento Valley. They're typically following along county lines and led by a board of local landowners. So, people that really care about their own community and really care about voluntary conservation of natural resources. Each RCD's programs are a little bit different, but you can imagine, depending on where you are, you might have something more forestry focused or agriculture focused. Most RCDs have a little bit of a mix of both, with pollinator habitat, public education, drought and fire adaptation, and all of that mixed in. I am a regional employee, and so you can see, I'm up at the top there in the orange. I'm one of 7 agriculture and climate hub coordinators that the RCDs host, and we're all kind of working collectively towards the advancement of climate beneficial agriculture through an investment specifically in soil health. And a lot of times that looks like soil carbon, which has been brought up a couple times today. A really big piece of what we're doing is scaling up the work that's happening at the district level, so county level, up to the state, to be visible more broadly for, studies like this, state policymakers and state agencies that might help create opportunity for funding these kinds of conservation practices. I'll call out Rachel Pettit is down at the lower right corner, and she would be your regional coordinator. If you wanted to get in contact with her, I put her contact information later as well. So RCDs provide something called technical assistance. It includes most things that you can think that would support a landowner in doing conservation on their land. So from, environmental compliance to finding funding to actually putting the plants in the ground. And one of the more recent offerings that some of the RCDs have trained up and been able to offer is called carbon farming or carbon farm planning. And this is a really great way to integrate the resource conservation district work with local climate efforts, regional climate efforts, because it attempts to provide a quantification of the carbon benefit of working lands. So similar to what Bea was saying before, this is one of the metrics that we're using to try to speak a shared language with some of our policymakers. So I'll dive a little bit into the nitty-gritty here. Carbon farming, you may be familiar with sustainable agriculture or regenerative agriculture, or you've heard, what they are, organic, all the like. These practices will probably seem familiar to you if you know what those are. And the goal is to really use these more familiar agricultural management practices to maximize carbon storage on a farm. And so it really takes a whole farm approach to optimizing this carbon capture on our working landscapes. This is kind of, the regulating ecosystem service that Bea talked about of carbon sequestration. And so that's just the lens that we're looking at all of these sustainable practices through. I'll point out, things that specifically support soil carbon. Really, compost adds soil carbon directly to soil, not disturbing your soil, so reducing or not tilling. And then planting plants that will break down and incorporate into the soil eventually are all really great ways to capture and store and use carbon on farmlands. These are really great practices for farmers to implement, and they often reduce the costs that they need to spend on soil inputs like fertilizer, the fuel needed for equipment because less equipment might be required. It could be saving water, so you're reducing your cost of water. All that's great. These are also typically pretty expensive practices, and so producers require a level of technical and financial assistance, depending on what their capacity is, to actually be able to increase their chances of adapting to climate change. And that's where, the RCDs come in, where studies like yours can create opportunity for funding for these specific practices. I think, it's the least we can do with the assumption that a lot of these farmers are stewarding the land on behalf of all of us. This is just a screen grab of kind of what a carbon farm plan looks like. So lots of maps, target species. There's a monarch butterfly, a caterpillar in there, and some milkweed. And the idea is that these plans are really co-developed with farmers to address their resource concerns, which creates a good amount of buy-in so that they actually, feel attached to wanting to pursue these practices in the long run. And hopefully it's making it easier by just saying, okay, this year you're going to do this and go for this funding. And next year you're going to do this and go for this funding. A lot of what we talked about in ecosystem services and carbon benefits are not really immediately realized or sometimes not noticeably beneficial to farmers. And so I want to talk about briefly, what from a farmer perspective is beneficial to pursuing these practices, and then what, the rest of us think is really beneficial beyond that. And so I'll talk a little bit about direct on-farm agricultural benefits for farmers and indirect co-benefits. I've mentioned some of these already. The direct benefits, lower costs for farmers, they can improve yields and improve soil health and increase water holding capacity. So that water piece comes into play again, which also plays into cost, especially in Southern California. Indirect benefits, we see increased access to funding opportunities and new revenue, decreased pollution in our air and water. And on both sides of this, I've included long-term farm viability. So on the left, as a farmer, they may be hoping that their kids are able to take over their farm at some point, that land is able to stay in production. Farming is more than just a job, it's a livelihood. And so for a lot of people, the continuation of that is really important and meaningful. And for those of us that aren't farmers, the long-term viability of agriculture in the state of California is incredibly important, both to our economy and being able to feed the people here. So something to keep in the back of your mind. This is just kind of a high level, those ecosystem services or co-benefits that come from investing in soil. And I highlighted the ones that the Natural and Working Land Study specifically calls out. So public health, water conservation, and climate change mitigation. But we also see benefits in biodiversity, food security, and profit for farmers. So I'm going to show just two examples of specific practices and how they can benefit all of us and farmers together. So cover crops are often planted in the off season or in between tree rows and orchards. They can improve water holding capacity on a farm, improve infiltration, so potentially recharging some groundwater, and really help with soil health. For non-farmers, for community members, you may see a reduction in the pollution in your water because Farmers no longer need to apply as many nutrients or pesticides, and there's less sediment runoff, and it can increase that carbon storage in the soil. And I put, I think it got, the fonts changed, and so it's not on there, but 1 acre per year of cover crop sequesters 0.24 megatons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which is not actually very much. And so this is kind of my example of a practice that is high benefit on a farm and maybe medium benefit off farms as far as carbon goes. And so, to put that into perspective, 18 acres of cover crop for a year sequesters, the same amount of carbon dioxide equivalent as a one vehicle. So it's not that much. But if you think about, a 500 acre farm, that's 28 cars per year. And so the flip side of this would be a practice that has more woody carbon storage and maybe, very specific or less direct benefit to a farmer, but then much more kind of co-benefit of carbon storage. And so windbreaks are a good example of that. They're typically planted for one thing and one thing only, which is reducing or protecting your cash crop and reducing the erosion there. But the carbon storage provided by those long-term, trees going in can be much greater. So almost, 8.5 megatons CO2e per linear foot per year. So 1,000-foot windbreak is not out of the question, which would be 2,000 cars off the road, allegedly. Let's see. Wrapping up here, I just wanted to leave you guys with a couple of thoughts. Really scaling this work depends on people doing these kinds of studies and creating opportunity with local and regional planning, writing in kind of the intent and the benefit of these natural and working lands. We're really hoping that farmers, catch on to this and want to do kind of their part. And our job is to really make sure that we make that easy and visible. And so in that way, I think that we're hopefully going to be able to contribute more, have more of a contribution from natural and working lands into this broader context of our statewide climate goals, regional climate goals. And I would just encourage, a continued dialogue with people that represent your natural and working lands in your area, being a partner to them, looking for, opportunities to find funding. I think that's one of the outcomes of these studies is to really outline, where we can fund a lot more of these practices, which will, lead to more implementation and hopefully more co-benefits for the rest of us from our natural and working lands. So I will leave it there. I know we're a little over time. This is my contact information. I also added Rachel and Joshua, who are regional coordinators further down south, closer to you all. And I don't know if we have time for questions, but I'll turn it back over to Ryan.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. I think in respect for our scheduling, any brief questions for the speakers today from our membership? Online? Anyone online? I don't see any hands raised, but the screen's got our speaker on it.
I don't see any raised hands.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentations. I have quite a few questions, but I think I'll get back with you. And I appreciate you reaching out for our local representative, which is Rachel. And so I did get her contact information too for the Imperial Valley contact. So with that, thank you very much. Ryan, anything else? Okay, we appreciate it. Thanks again for your time. Oh, and one more for the public. If the public has any comments or questions for the speakers in here or online,
I see no raised hands.
we see no one else. So thanks again. Bye. All the way down to here's opportunity for member comments. Anything else? No? Okay. And public comments. Any public comments? None I see in house, and I see no one online. Thank you for that. So quickly, I'm just going to go through a chair report for myself. I want to recognize new members for the EEC, and we're looking forward to them. So Daniel Brotman from Glendale, from the Aurora Vergadue Communities. He spoke on one of our items, so thank you for joining us and thank you for stepping up and speaking. And also Martha Cardina Singh from Imperial County. We just talked a little bit about Imperial County on some of this with some of the agriculture, so great to have you on. Look forward to some of your input in the future. And registration is now open for the 2025 SCAG Demographic Workshop on Wednesday, October 1st at 9 a.m. You can get a hold of staff for that. And the 36th annual election of the Demographic Workshop will be held at SCAG's main office downtown Los Angeles with an online attendance option. This year's theme, Revisiting the Intergenerational Contract, aims at to create a deeper understanding of how groups in our society rely on one another across generations and between lifestyle change stages. So you can register on SCAG's website. I'm sure you've been there recently. And pardon me? Oh, we just jump on it. Okay, thank you. No, it caught me for a second. So we'll go ahead and move on to staff report at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yvette Macias, Senior Government Affairs Officer for SCAG and the IE. I briefly introduced myself last month, but we had a few new members this month and a few missing members last month. Again, I'm taking over for my colleague Rachel Wagner, who is doing the great work out in Ventura County, and I'm happy to support our membership at EEC and our board leadership. Thank you so much. Anything you need, I am your girl.
All right, and to close this out, Ryan mentioned, but the reminder, we do not have a meeting in October. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, November 6th, 2025. And thank you all for your participation. With that, this meeting is adjourned.